it's review. So there's really not that kind of...
You're going to find, and maybe that's the piece with the habit, is that anytime kids are doing something, they're doing something that you're expecting them to do.
Right. So, like,
So you
what
can-
I'm seeing the problem for me is not necessarily, like, when they're, like, not transitioning, because, like, there's not going to be a whole lot of transition times tomorrow. It's going to be a lot of, like, working on study guides and, like, me answering questions.
I mean, it also brings, the only time I could do it tomorrow would be second period, because I actually have meetings third and fourth. Let me come I'm going to come take a peek second period.
Okay.
Are you comfortable with if I feel like it's a good time?
Yeah, if you feel like it makes sense, that's fine.
Cool.
Yeah.
And it'll just be like a...
Yeah, just maybe like an index card.
Yeah.
Or, like, pat your head if you have nothing else. That's cool. It'd be like baseball in there. It'd be the third base coach.
I could do whatever. I'm glad that I'm glad you feel like that might help you, like, increase the habit.
Yeah, I was actually thinking maybe you could stand in the back and, like, text me and my phone will buzz and be like,
Yeah, let's make it even more real time.
Yeah, that's definitely...
Let's make it even more real time.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah, I think that would be helpful. I've actually, I was talking to Cody about, like, the real-time thing because, I don't know if you know Scarlett Feinberg. She's the Dean of Students at Renaissance.
I don't.
She was at Believe last year, so I didn't know. But anyway, she did a lot of real-time coaching with several of the teachers, and apparently everybody, like, hated the idea of it, and by the third time we're like, we love this so
It's
much.
a scary idea, but
Yeah.
it's super,
and so I was like, that might be
it's
really useful then.
It's really useful. It is really useful. I mean, it's not useful for every piece, obviously, but in terms of the, like, systematic, what to say pieces, really useful.
Yeah.
Okay. Would you kindly send me an email before the end of the day that basically runs down our next steps?
Okay. Let me put it on my to-do list.
Please. So, basically, what's the new understanding you're leaving here with
Okay.
based on our conversation?
So I have next steps for today's meeting.
Yeah, the two questions I'd love to hear what you're thinking is, what you're thinking in terms of what's the new understanding you're leaving here with,
Okay.
and then specifically what are the key actions.
And then I'm also going to put a note to myself of for the week after exams. Yeah.
Yeah. The
Week after
21st.
exams to try and find a section of a lesson with 10.3 that has tons of transitions so that you can...
It could be...
Well, I mean, some transitions at least because,
Yeah.
like, I feel like part of the problem that I have with 10.3, in addition to, like, just making sure that I'm super consistent, is that there's so many misbehaviors from a few of the kids that
It's hard to... that middle ground
it's hard to
short.
do both and still teach.
I feel you.
And so, like, having, like, a second pair of eyes to kind of help go through that part, I think would be really helpful with that group. Just, like, to make sure that I'm, A, saying it fast enough, saying it clearly enough that they can all hear, and then also that I'm not spending so much time sacrificing the stuff they actually, like, they really have to learn. And not that behavior isn't something they really have to learn, because they certainly do. But, like, trying to balance those two so that it's not all one or all the other, you know? And I think having a second pair of eyes would be helpful.
Yeah, I think so. I think having a second pair of eyes is always helpful. I also think that might lead us towards a conversation about expectations.
Okay.
And how to deliver expectations in a way that works really well for you in 10.3. Because then we can move away from this behavior narration stuff and we can focus on other things you want to focus on in the classroom.
And I think this is one of my big ones because, like, And I was thinking about this over break, and I was like, I've taught for, I guess this is 6.5 full years now. This is my 7th year. And this is the first time that anybody's ever worked with me in classroom management.
I don't know if that should make you despise me, or, but I'm glad that you seem to know.
Yeah, no.
But
like,
I can imagine that going one of two very different ways.
Yeah.
So I appreciate how
it's kind of like being the honors kid that's always just been able to, like, been told that you're doing great, and then you get to the hard class and you're like,
yeah, like I'm at first, like I'm
yeah, and
first
so
year
now it's
all
like
over
I have
again.
to learn how to study. It's like going to college, right? I have to learn how to study now. This is hard. And so I feel like, and not that necessarily my classroom management was great at the other schools that I was at. It's just, it wasn't a focus. It was all about academics.
Right.
Like, and that was it. That's what everybody was looking for. And so I was always like, oh, you're doing great, because like the academic piece was pretty solid. And it, it's just like, it's almost like they just had too low of expectations. Well, not almost, it was.
They're like hands off in the behavior piece.
Yeah, hands off in the behavior piece, like do it how you want and that kind of stuff.
I don't want you to be late. I'm looking at the clock and I'm
I have
realizing.
7 off, but
Oh, that's fine. Okay.
you don't, but I do.
Okay. I didn't. I was just like, oh my goodness.